What's up everybody, Nick Cutroneo here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is video number 20 in my video progress series for Saudade No. 3 by Roland Dyens. So in this video, I figured I would do something a little different. It's been a few days since I uploaded, and it's been 3 days since I last practiced. And what I decided to do is today I decided to practice for 45 minutes and then record my performance. So what I'm going to do with you is I'm going to share that performance after my practice with you all, and I'm actually going to watch it with you. And I'm going to be following along in the score, and I am going to be pointing out things that I feel that I need to work on, and isolating and identifying things that I need to improve. And I'm then going to wrap up this video with a few objectives that I'm going to try to accomplish over the course of this week while practicing this piece. So my upcoming week is going to be a little bit different, and then I'm going to end this week's practice with another video like this, sort of seeing and comparing what I had done at the beginning of the week and how it has improved over the course of the week. So without further ado, let's take a listen and watch this performance. I'm going to break it into the 3 sections, actually into the 4 sections with the lento at the end as its own separate thing as well, because, well, my daughter decided to interrupt me in the middle of that, so I didn't get a true full performance. But that's okay. So here we go. I have the video queued up on the screen, and we are going to take a listen. Here we go. This is the first section. So that was the first section. Overall, I was very pleased with how it turned out. Structurally, I've been talking about over the past few practices about how there are 3 main sections: the opening up to the tambura, the lento melody going all the way to right before those fast repeated chords, then finally the last line with that measure long lick, and then the strummed chord at the end. And to me, I thought that that was pretty well blocked out. I think the only area where I could tighten up rhythmically through that is towards the end of the second section, of the lento section, where I have that accelerando slur line. And I think that just after the pull off onto the low D power chord, I can sort of jump right into that. I don't need to wait as long, I don't think. My concept is that that D chord, while it has a fermata over it, while that chord is fermated, I'm actually playing that line sort of during that fermata. That's sort of my intent, which I feel helps propel the music forward, rather than stop on that chord, play a lick, stop. I'm trying to not have that happen. Aside from that big structural thing, with that one little piece that needs to be worked on, I feel the rest of it worked pretty well. There are tiny little things that need to be just cleaned up. The opening lick had like one missed note in it. The second lick had like one missed note in it. So just just dealing with that detail work and really trying to get those licks to pop and to not have any missed notes as sort of my ideal. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, if I was rating those licks in particular, I would probably be giving them a 9 out of 10. I think, it's just one little note out of place that's keeping it from being perfect. In a concert, obviously, it would be fine. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to strive for perfection in my practice for those licks, especially since the first one just sort of opens up the piece as like a big explosion. So I want to really make sure that that has the statement that I want to have with that lick. Other areas, the only other area or two other areas that really, I would say, bothered me is the tambora. I'm not getting a consistent sound on. So I need to really do some work on really getting a consistent sound on that hit. And the other thing is the harmonics after the harmonics after this triplet. That sounded really good, but I'm sort of playing it a little out of time. I want those harmonics to be really clear. For whatever reason today during the practice, I just was not happy with them. Seems to be working somewhat better now, so maybe it was just a fluke of the day. I don't know, but definitely something to keep my eye out on. So now let's take a listen to the second section. Okay, so that second section I thought is pretty straightforward, actually. Really, my goal is to keep it super rhythmical, super tight, have it at around 80. I'm not really going to try and push it much faster than that. Obviously, I have to work on the hammer-ons from nowhere section. That's just a section that I have to work on the rhythmical accuracy as well as the note accuracy. And I have to make sure that I have a good balance between the melody and the accompaniment. So that's just a section that I will continue to be working on and I will continue to be giving attention to. Aside from that, everything here is pretty straightforward for the rest of the piece. I think now it's just a matter of getting consistency and really starting to think about how I want this melody to develop. The main melody comes in 3 times. Right? That melody comes in so much and is repeated so much, even within itself. we hear this motive 6 times in the piece. So for me, it's about how am I going to color that? How am I going to let that develop as the piece develops? Later on, the third time that it comes in, we do get a piano. And we do get sort of this increase of dynamic. And then here, we get that back to mezzo. So we have this piano, mezzo piano, forte, mezzo piano. I'm not quite sure if that necessarily works. Certainly that forte and then down to mezzo piano, there has to be a space to let that sonority just give way a little bit. So that's something that I'll probably work on and take a look at, as well as maybe trying to find and maybe add a little bit of some interesting colors during that nasty G sharp sound. Nasty in a good way. You know, so I'll mess around with that a little bit. In the B theme, the B section, I am purposely the second time around making the bass notes short. I think it's an interesting effect. You know, doing... And I'm bringing down the dynamic. I didn't really do that effectively in this performance, but it's something that I am doing. So there are things musically that I'm doing in this piece that I'll start to explore and really make decisions on this upcoming week. These are things that you may have noticed coming in and out of the performances. As I've been working and learning and memorizing the piece, I've just sort of been experimenting with stuff. And so now is the time where I'm going to start making those decisions based off of what I've experimented on. Any of the inconsistencies, note mistakes or anything, obviously work on just buttoning that up. The way I'm going to do it, as I've been saying for many videos, is singing letter names, counting out loud. Let's go on to the third section, and this one's going to be broken in half. I'm going to talk about the fast section and then the lento on its own. So, with that said, there are certain areas that I definitely need to focus on. And the first of them being from the groove where the eighth note now becomes 240. Bum da da di da 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 ba di da di da ba di da di da bum da da di da dum ba da da di da dum. The 4/4 3/4 plus 2/16, which is really 7/8. 4/4 back into 3/4 plus 2/16, 7/8. That section then going into the bum 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 ba ba di da dum bum. That whole section, the transition needs to be worked on. So what I mean by that is this part here, that whole thing, right? 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1. And that's got to be really clear. Right? That's got to be a really clear and balanced chord. So, I think part of is that I might add a roll there, but then it's also making sure that that's really in time and that transition works. It's getting better. It's always muffled sounding to me there. Also, when that comes back in, when after I'm doing this here. Now that's a little bit easier because I've got a full 3/16 notes to get myself ready back in there. But I do need to make it just as powerful and just as clear of a opening there. Other than that, obviously these arpeggios. Right, that part. So that whole section needs to be just cleaned up. Now I am putting a space here. And what it says in the music is that there is a direction to abruptly stop any preceding resonance at that point. And so the way that I'm doing that is I'm sort of actually stopping everything going into that. And so I like that space there because it has that abrupt stop to it that to me is sort of what he's looking for. But I just want that pause to be less. I want there to be less time there. So I'll work on doing that both times that comes up and for both licks. Something that I did work on in my practice of this was the sudden dynamic change where I have... Right, that whole thing. So I really worked on that dynamic shaping, which I was very pleased to hear come out in that performance. I have to clean up the arpeggios, and that whole section just needs to be just worked out. It needs to be cleaned up. I'm adding rest strokes on this part. On those things, just to bring those out, to get that forte to jump out. I really want to hear this. Like, I want to hear that growl with a nice ponticello. Right? Yeah. So just nice growl. Right? That whole thing. So, really make sure that is like super bright and gnarly sounding. Like, that's really what I want to hear is a nice gnarly. Just nice gnarly sort of biting bass to that, just sort of rumbling in the background and not getting too mushy sounding. And then this whole thing, I think I'm gonna pull back there. So I need to clean that up, make sure that I'm drilling that out and working it out. So that way I'm not really missing notes the first time. And then making sure that I'm just shaping it the way that I want to. Because that's like sort of the ending, and if it comes up too abruptly, then it sort of sounds a little weird. And then obviously, bum! Gotta work on my tapping on the guitar that way. Take a listen to that Largo section. All right, so we heard a little cameo from my daughter at the very end. She thought the tambour, the tapping on the guitar, was hilarious. Anyway, my big thing about the Largo is that there's not enough direction. I need to be better with the rhythm here, especially when it goes from 16th notes to 8th note triplets, just throughout that. There is one place where I had changed a fingering that I had talked about one time, and that changed fingering did not work for me. That part. So as I'm going from here, so then here, I just gotta work that. And also that bass note too. From there, it would be easier, you know. I like the sound up here, especially if I can get a good rest stroke there. So that's something to take a look at and to work around. It does say poco, writ poco. So that's something to finesse, that I've got to work on that finesse of that. Other than that, it's really just about counting. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 and a 1 E and a 2 E and that A bass that I did a whole bunch of repetitions on before. I'm gonna make sure I do more of. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 4 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and so on. So that's really what needs to be done there. And I need to count that and practice counting that a whole lot and work on internalizing that, especially during those 4 lines before the dance theme comes back in at the very end. To wrap up this video, I'm going to have really a lot of what I need to be working on is just refinement. It's just polishing up of things that I'm missing. So, working backwards, starting with the Largo section at the end of this piece, it's really just about counting, just doing a lot of counting, spending time doing counting, making sure that I'm working on that, making sure that I'm focused on that. And then along with that, cleaning up some of these trouble areas. So a lot of the sections that I had issues with in that third section, I have as excerpt practices. In fact, my numbers 9, 10, and 11 of things that I need to practice are actually excerpts that I work on. So that's just something that will get rotated in that 15 minutes of excerpt practice. So there are a few ways that I can approach working on this. And I think the first way that I can do is that I can do what I did last week, where I have 45 minutes, 15 minutes of technique, difficult passage sections, and just rotating through them. And then 15 minutes on one section, 15 minutes on another, on the third section, which is every day, and then flip-flop 1 and 2. Probably what I'm going to do this week is not that, but rather I'm going to spend 15 minutes on the technique stuff, the tricky areas. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 30 minutes on either the ritual, the dance, or the finale of this. And I will be flip-flopping 2 days a week with each one. So I'll get 6 days of practice in on the piece, 2 days on each section. That will hold the piece over, I feel, because right now what I need to do is I need to spend more time within the sections that I'm working on, rather than do a mass amount of practice. So that means that for 30 minutes, I'm going to really work on the shape of the opening section. I'm going to work on making sure I'm getting consistent with the licks, and that the whole thing is working consistently well. I'm going to work on making sure that, like in the dance, that I have enough time to sing through letter names and to count, and to really be able to internalize that, while also spending time on the hammer-ons from nowhere section. And then in the finale, I have really 2 goals. One is to neaten up and to button up some of those tricky areas, but then I do want to, be able to play this at 240, at this speed, sort of. Right, that's the speed that I want that to be at. So I do want to put in that time for that as well. So I need to be spending, when I'm working on a section, be spending more time with those individual sections. It's not even halfway through June. So we've got, today is June, what's today? Today is June 12th, and I've got 18 more days of practice, okay? That is just over 2 more weeks before I want to have the performance, sort of my first run-through performance, where I'm going to do a live stream of this on my channel. So I think I'm in good shape, and I think that this method moving forward is going to be way more productive for what I'm trying to accomplish. With all that said, if you stuck through to the end of this video, thanks for watching. Please give it a big thumbs up. If there are any questions, if there's any comments that you wish to give, please feel free to give them down in the comment section below. I will either answer you in that comment thread, or I will make sure to address it in a video. As I've said in other videos, I really appreciate the support. I'm getting lots of feedback, positive feedback regarding this video series. So I really hope that you are finding this useful. And it really is sort of letting the hair down, so to speak, of what someone preparing a piece would do, a professional would do, at least me as a professional, how my process is. And if you have any questions on that process, please feel free to ask. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification, so that way you're notified every time I release a new video. So with all that said, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.